Hi, everyone. Welcome to Transitions. I'm Anne Wagner, your host, and we're broadcasting today from the beautiful Hunters Bay Radio satellite studio in Bracebridge. My guest today is Mary Shirley-Thompson from Family, Youth, and Child Services of Muskoka. Mm-hmm. Welcome, Mary. Thank you for coming back.
Thanks for asking me.
Well, we had such a great chat the first time, and there was so much we didn't have a chance to touch on. So you're back today, and we're going to talk about some of the common stressors that young people experience. And that's really your area of expertise and passion.
It is, at least passion. I like to think I have some expertise by now, but it certainly is an area of passion for me. And that's a great question, you know. And I want to just start by saying I've been involved in child and youth mental health now for, I almost hesitate to say it out loud, but for several decades. So I've had a chance to see over time how, things stay the same and how they are different.
Right.
I mean, the challenges of growing up are the same today as they were when I grew up or you grew up or, my kids grew up. Right? The kind of context around that is very different.
Yes.
And that makes a huge difference. Right?
Absolutely.
When my kids grew up, and they grew up in Muskoka, they grew up in a kind of environment where they could, and if it wasn't too far away, they could go visit their friends on their own. They were pretty free to move around.
Yes.
And it was pretty safe. We didn't really get too concerned about, being picked up by strangers or, making sure that you knew we knew the parents. We knew all our, through school and stuff, we knew the parents of our kids and we knew their kids and,
right.
That kind of stuff. And that's still largely the case here in Muskoka. But for many young people growing up now, that isn't the case. That, you live in an environment where both parents are working. They don't get home until after the kids are already home from school.
Yes.
So the kids are in after-school programs. They go from home to before school programs to school to after-school programs to home to do their homework, to have their baths or do whatever their evening routines is, to go to bed, to get up the next morning and do the same thing, right? And just in and of itself, that's a fairly stressful thing. I mean, there's a lot of, and if you mix in there activities like sports activities or dance or gymnastics or piano lessons, then that has a lot of coordinating. And if you add on top of that some time to go out and hang out with your friends, right. how do you make it all fit? So I think parents experience more organizational stressors, and I think there are, if not more economic stressors, there certainly are no fewer economic stressors. And if you've got both parents working, then you've got coordinating of schedules of two parents and kids and all their various activities and that sort of stuff. So that's a lot. So for a young person growing up in that environment, and then you add in the social media.
Oh, that's a huge topic.
So you add in Facebook and you add in the cell phone and you add in the constant being in touch with each other.
Yes.
But maybe not so in touch with each other. And all that can come out of that. So you add in cyberbullying and sexting and all the kinds of, more, I'll call them unhealthy connections that can get made, and the disparity between what your average 12-year-old knows about social media and your average 30-year-old parent knows about social media and monitoring that, then you've got a pretty potent mix for kids to be pretty stressed out.
Yes, I guess in the old days, if we had something to say, we walked up to someone and said it or called them on the phone.
Called them on the phone.
And nowadays...
And your parents were in the next room.
Yes.
So they could hear your side of the conversation. And if they got really worried, they'd pick up the extension.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Now then, your kids can be sitting in their rooms having conversations about all kinds of stuff that you as a parent have no idea about.
And it's so easy to hit forward, and that can go, as they say,
That's right.
viral.
It can go viral. That picture they upload
Right.
potentially is there forever.
So often very innocent actions can have long-term consequences.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am.
That is an added level of stress for young people.
It is. And sorting all that stuff out, because the pressure to be, I mean, we know that one of the most important developmental challenges, I mean, it's important to meet the challenge, it's important to be successful at, is to find your where you belong. So
Yes.
as you move into your teen years, the whole idea is to start moving a little bit away from your family and find a new group to belong to start to test out, what are my values? What do I think about this? What kind of a person do I want to be? You know, all that kind of stuff. And it's important. It's absolutely crucial to
Right.
do that. So you move out into an environment where alcohol use, drug use, particularly soft drugs, although not only soft drugs, are so readily available, and where the pressures to try it, try it, it's not going to hurt you, just
Yes.
once isn't going to hurt you, to try it, to get involved in sexual relationships, to find a way to fit in, to belong, to be like everybody else, or what you think is like everybody else, whether it is or it isn't.
Right.
The pressures to do that are, I don't know that they are any greater than they were when my kids were growing up or I was growing up, but they certainly, the consequences for mistakes
Yes.
that we all make,
Right.
I think are oftentimes more serious now.
Yes.
I mean, when my kids were growing up, STDs were there, but AIDS wasn't,
Good point.
And even STDs weren't all that prevalent. Now then, they're a big deal. Everybody, we all need to be aware of that stuff. There are other kinds of, and then as we know, the implications of uploading that, semi-nude picture of yourself.
Yes.
Or sending it out to this guy that you really like or this girl that you really like and having them send it around to everybody else in your class, the ramifications of that, that is huge mental health implications. I mean, we see lots and lots of kids who are dealing with anxiety at levels that are dramatically higher than 15 years ago, dealing with depression more frequently and for longer periods of time than 15 years ago. Our counselors, we have therapists in each of the 4 high schools, at least one day a week. And the kids that they're seeing are kids that they're dealing with fairly significant I want to say I started to say mental health issues, but they are mental health issues, but they are the reasonable outcomes of a high pressure life.
Yes.
Where to be a good student, to be a good person, to be a good, member of your family, to, fit in, to make these choices, to decide yes or no about a range of potential activities and to engage or not engage,
Right.
Those kinds of things. It's huge. And if you have any vulnerabilities,
and we all do.
Yes. Right, then those vulnerabilities make that youth even more likely to experience difficulties. And the families are doing absolutely the best they can. These are parents that are caring. They want the best for their kids. They're doing everything they can to provide for them on all kinds of levels. And they're also reasonably stressed we use that word a lot, but they're working as hard as they can work, and what they see is their kids suffering in ways that they don't know what to do about. They don't know how to help. You know?
So maybe we'll just take a brief break now to hear from our sponsors, and maybe when we come back, you can share with us some strategies maybe for how we can tackle some of these tough issues.
Yeah.
That would be great. So we'll be right back after hearing from our sponsors. Welcome back to Transitions. Today I'm chatting with Mary Shirley-Thompson. And Mary, you were just telling us about the added level of pressure that young people face these days. Do you have some ideas about what young people and their families can do to cope with these pressures?
I do.
Fabulous. Just what I was hoping you would say.
Yeah, I'm grateful to have them, actually. And, you know, I'm going to say things that other people say in other contexts, you know. So, you know, there are so many opportunities for people today, so many opportunities for young people, that it can be difficult for the young person and for the family not to want to kind of do it all. Right?
Yes.
You know? And that can add a whole level of pressure. So one of the things that one of the strategies that I think young people and their parents in particular can use is a strategy that looks at what is it that we really value as a family.
Okay.
You know, so if what's really of value is the family having a couple of evenings a week where they can be together as a family, then you make the sacrifices you need to make to do that. And if that means that, you know, you can't be in dance and gymnastics and participate on 3 clubs at school, then maybe that's what it means.
Okay, so you got to evaluate some priorities.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. You got to decide what your priorities are. And again, that's not rocket science. It's not the kind of thing that folks don't hear in all kinds of other aspects. One of the other things that's really important is it is really important to get enough sleep, particularly as a young person. We know the research is really clear. Teenagers need a minimum of 9 hours of sleep a night. Most teenagers get between 6 and 7.
Aha.
So they go around their lives sleep deprived all the time.
Wow.
And we also know that if you're sleep deprived, you don't think as well, your judgment is impaired. Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to, you know, necessarily do something stupid, but your ability to kind of think clearly through a choice and really weigh the pros and cons is going to be compromised because you're not getting enough sleep.
And sometimes don't you think it just makes you feel not well?
Oh, yeah.
Like you're dragging yourself around?
Yeah. Tired all the time.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to feel enthusiastic about anything, whatever
Absolutely.
it is. Right? The other thing that's true is it's important to eat relatively well.
That's a big one often for teenagers.
Yes, it is. I know. And there are ways to eat well that also can be fairly fun. I mean, there are good foods. I mean, pizza, you wouldn't want a steady diet of pizza, but pizza isn't a bad food, all things considered. You know, peanut butter sandwiches and an apple, that's not, you know, now that may seem a little young for teenagers, but, you know, I think there's some ways of you know, being able to indulge at the same time as eating relatively well, at least most of the time.
Okay.
You know, those kinds of things. The other thing that I think is true is that, again, when we were talking earlier, we talked about young people who have vulnerabilities are going to be at increased risk. If you know you have a vulnerability, or if as parents we know that our children our youth, our teenagers have vulnerabilities, then we can help them learn to manage those vulnerabilities. And that may mean coming to an organization like ours. It may mean talking to the school guidance person about some you know, skill building that they can help with. It may be participating in a martial art. I mean, we know that one of the most effective ways to help a young person or a youth who has ADD, ADHD, is martial arts. Martial arts
Oh.
train an individual in discipline, in how to think before you act, how to be contained in your movements. Tai Chi does the same thing. So there are a number of ways, there are all kinds of strategies that a family, the parents and kids and youth can use to help them develop the skills that will allow them to manage their vulnerabilities more easily, and so that they're not so much vulnerabilities as they've flipped to becoming assets.
Right.
They flip to becoming skill sets that then open up other doors for them.
And I think that's a very powerful example, because we're constantly hearing that increasingly more and more young people are being diagnosed with ADD and ADHD.
Yeah. Well, and in this environment, in the kind of culture we live in, where there is so much pressure to perform, and where we are bombarded with messages about what success looks like,
Yes.
it's little wonder that kind of fast thinking, impulsive or unable to slow down one's thoughts kind of thing happens. We also hear about record numbers of anxiety and depression in young people and teens. And again, little wonder, given the environment and the kind of context that our children and young people are growing into.
So would you say that it's fair to say that families can play an important role by reframing that for their young people, for their children and their youth?
Yes.
In terms of, you don't have to be involved in everything.
That's right.
That's not necessarily going to be a positive for you in the long run.
That's right. Well, and I mean, families play the most important role. I mean, it's just a bottom line. I mean, that old line that says, you learn what you live.
Yes.
So the place where all of us learned first off was in our families.
Yes.
And either we learned stuff that we all learned stuff that's of benefit to us, and we all learned stuff that we had to fix later on. That's just part of being human.
Right.
And as parents, one of the things our kids do for us is they do what I call, they bump us up against ourselves. Our kids become experts at pressing our buttons.
Yes.
It's part of their job description as far as I'm concerned. And what that really means for me is that as a parent, my daughters were expert at finding those areas where my vulnerabilities showed up, so that it gave me an opportunity. After I quit yelling at them, it gave me an opportunity then to go back and think about what I had done and what they had done, and to learn to do it differently, so that I could then become a better model for them on how they could do it differently.
Right.
So
it's a lifelong learning.
It's a lifelong learning. And, all parents have vulnerabilities. All people have vulnerabilities. And we all bump up against ourselves, whatever our age. That relationship between parent and child is one of those relationships where both parties get to grow and learn, hopefully.
Yes.
That's, for me, in the best of all possible worlds, that's what happens.
And so that's a really powerful message, too. Just because we don't make the best decision once doesn't mean that we won't make a better decision next time.
Absolutely. And in fact, that's our hope, is that, I know it's one of my hopes as a human being, is that to think that I'm not going to make mistakes is foolish. I'm going to make all kinds of them every day. For me, the hopeful part is I don't have to make the same mistake again and again and again,
Yeah.
although there have been times in my life when I've done that. And that I can learn to do something different that's of benefit to me. And also that if I've made a mistake that's hurt somebody else, or that has caused somebody else distress, I can go back and repair that. That, those kinds of repairs, that kind of making a relationship better is always possible. It's always possible.
Very powerful thought you've left us with there.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us. This has really gotten the conversation started and hopefully given a lot of people something to think about.
I hope so. Yeah.
So you've mentioned these strategies and talked about that supports are available. If a young person were interested, how could they reach out for help?
Oh, Great question. Thanks for asking that. So there are lots of ways of doing that. Well, maybe not lots, but a number of ways of doing that. Not as many as I'd like. They can go to their school guidance people. Through their school guidance people, they can get to our therapists who are in the high schools. They can come to our walk-in clinics. We have a walk-in clinic in Huntsville on Tuesdays from 11 in the morning until 7 at night. You just have to be in our door by 5:30. And it's in Bracebridge on Thursdays from 11 in the morning until 7 at night. Every Tuesday and every Thursday, except Christmas and March break. So they can go there. If your doctor is a member of a family health team, you can access support services through your family doctor and the family health team. You can, there are lots of ways. If what you're looking for is some recreational stuff, the Parks and Rec brochures that all three towns put out periodically have all kinds of fairly low cost opportunities to be active and to engage in those kinds of things. Yeah. So there's all kinds of ways.
Great suggestions. And we will post those on our website at Transitions as well. And to our listeners, if you have any thoughts or any questions for us, you can reach us at transitions@hbr@gmail.com. That's transitionsathbr@gmail.com. So, Mary, thank you so much for being with us and having this conversation with us. You've been most helpful.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.